This programme was funded by the Broadcasting Authority of Ireland with a television licence fee.
Those boys out there, they're very, very proud men with that white jersey on, and they don't want to let anyone down.
Absolutely, and why shouldn't they be? From back chance! Oh, 1-0. Just wide. Superb start, give it to York. We haven't created any clear-cut chances, but the pressure's starting to mount, and Dundalk playing the ball around and bringing out the angles and trying to cloud them. Shields coming forward, running at them again. Good ball, Kelly up to his right foot. The shot was heading goal bound and it hits Pat Hoban. Once again, a player saved the corner, it's going to be a throw-in.
Hello and welcome to the first part of this two-part series on the history of Dundalk FC. I'm Orla Crilly.
And I am Jason Kelly.
Over the next 45 minutes we'll be taking a look at the early days of the Great Northern Railway, the history of the Lily Whites kits, success, failure and everything that made us what we are today.
Dundalk FC, 1903 to 1983.
In 1881, the G.N.R opened a new railway works, employment 300 on the RD Road, but it wasn't until 1903 we first hear of football being played by the G.N.R Association Club.
The first reported game was between G.N.R and Dundalk Wanderers at the Fair Green in front of a few hundred spectators, where they were beaten 4-0. The first club secretary of the G.N.R Associated Club was William O'Neill, father of future international player Billy O'Neill. When the Dundalk and District League formed in 1906, G.N.R was one of the 6 founding members.
To find out more about the early history of the club, we talked to Robbie Rafferty, author of A Century of Local Soccer, 1990-2019.
Who were the first 6 teams in the Dundalk and District League, and when did the Railwaymen first win the McArdle Cup?
Well, the first 6 teams in it were Carrick Macross, the G.N.R, Drogheda Centaurs, St Nicholas's, St Mary's and Dundalk Rovers. And St Mary's, actually, they were the Maris College and they went on to win the league. That was in 1906. That was the very first league. One of the players that played with the Maris that year was a man called Leo McGrain, and he was actually killed in the First World War. Exactly 10 years after they won the title. The other question you asked me then was, when did the G.N.R win the first McArdle Cup? Well, that was in 1920-21. That was after the league was revived by Desi Casey's father, Paddy Casey. And they won it again the following year. And then after that, then they went into the Leinster Senior League.
Can you tell me how they fared in the early years of that competition?
In the Leinster Senior League, well, they actually only were 4 years in the Leinster Senior League. And they usually finished probably around about the first 4 or 5. They never actually won it, and I don't think they were ever even runners-up. But after 4 years, the Free State League was only after starting in 1922 or so. But an awful lot of teams were only lasting about a year. And the year that the G.N.R got into the Free State League, they actually finished 3rd in the league. And they got in place of a team called Pioneers. Everybody expected that it'd be another team that would get in ahead of them to finish second. But for some reason or anyway, they were picked to go into it. And the man that was the secretary of the G.N.R at that time, a man called Billy Hill, he actually went on to be the secretary of the Dundalk and District League as well.
Were there many Dundalk FC players who played in the District League?
Oh, loads of them. I'll give you a few names anyway. Joey Donnelly, of course, is regarded as the greatest player ever to come out of Dundalk, you know. And he had 10 caps for Ireland. Billy O'Neill, He's played with Brookville from up the RD Road. Joey Dundee, he played with Norton Villa. But it's Billy O'Neill holds the record of the most caps for a Dundalk player, 11. Now then you have Tom Crawley, Tommy Clinton, Tommy and Jerry Godwin, Joe Ralph, his son Ollie Ralph, John Murphy, David McCardle, Patsy McKeown, Tom and Brian McConville, Francie Callan, Barry Cho, Desi Gorman, Tiernan Mulvanna, Shane Grimes, Carl Muckian, Tommy Trainer, Ken Finn and Frank McCourt. They're just some of the players that can trade.
What does Dundalk FC mean to you?
Well, obviously a hometown club of all my life. When I was 5-6 years of age during the Alan Fox years, and I was a kid getting up on my brother's shoulders, so it's inherent in any soccer lover in Dundalk, so it means everything to me.
Well, I said I've been coming since I was 13 or 14, and I'm 69 now, and I never miss. I live away from Dundalk now, but I travel up with my daughter here beside me, Ciarán, and get as many home matches as we can, and we get to some away matches if we can get them to as well. So it's part of your life, really, I don't know what I do without it, It's amazing. Great to be part of it,
What does Dundalk FC mean to you, David?
Everything. The local club, everything.
What does Dundalk FC mean to you?
Dundalk FC, everything. Means everything.
I love Dundalk more than me mother, honest to God. It just is
if there was no Dundalk tomorrow, there would be no me.
Yeah, 100%.
Dundalk means a lot to us.
Oriel Park on a Friday night, you can't beat it.
I'd rather be in Oriel Park on a Friday night than anywhere else.
What does Dundalk FC mean to you?
Everything.
What does it mean to you?
I think Dermot Keeley said it that when the club is rocking, the town's rocking. And that's pretty much sums that up.
Yeah, definitely.
There are very few records about the G.N.R team in the early years of the Dundalk and District League. We know they took part in the 1913-14 season just before the outbreak of World War I, and the league was put on hiatus until 1919. The G.N.R Works team spent a few years competing in the Irish Junior League Cup and the Leinster Cup competitions, but rejoined the District League when it resumed. They also decided to enter the Newry and District League that year. In 1920, G.N.R reached their first Leinster Junior Cup final, where they played Avonmore, who they were beaten by after 2 replays.
In 1921, after Ireland was divided north and south and the Football Association of Ireland was established, a new Free State League began. It was made up of 8 Dublin clubs, 2 of which you'd recognise today, Bohemians and Shelbourne. Dundalk G.N.R joined the Leinster Senior League the following season, finishing 4th and 3rd for the next 3 seasons. In June 1926, G.N.R was elected to the Free State League, beginning their unbroken participation in the League of Ireland. In August of 1926, Dundalk G.N.R, managed by Joe McCleary, travelled to Cork to take on the other works team in the league, Fordsons, where they were beaten 2-1. Joey Quinn scored Dundalk's first goal in the League of Ireland, and the team finished 8th in the league that season. The Railwaymen reached their first Leinster Senior Cup final in 1929 after 3 seasons, finishing mid-table in the league. Unfortunately, they lost it after a replay, and it was the last time the club was billed as Dundalk G.N.R. The club officially changed its name to Dundalk AFC the following summer.
Oriel Park, the home of football, wasn't always there. The athletic grounds near the town centre was Dundalk's home between 1903 and 1936, with the club paying a ground fee for each game. It was owned by Dundalk Young Irons at the time, before the land was developed into a factory. Occasionally, Dundalk played at the grounds of the Dundalk Educational Institution, now the Grammar School, and at St Mary's College during the Junior League and Leinster Senior League years. Matches were usually played on a Sunday, and in later years the Carroll's Recreation Ground became the club's own when the athletic grounds weren't available. In 1936, with the success of Dundalk FC and the rise it was becoming clear that the club needed a bigger stadium with proper facilities. Casey's Field was made available by Paddy Casey to the club committee. The Free State Football Association agreed to a grant of £500 for the groundworks. The pitch was levelled as best they could within the budget constraints, and terraces were created using sleevers running several rows the length of the pitch. Joan Murphy remembers what Oriel Park looked like back then.
Well, it was completely different. It was the other way around. Where the shed is now, that was one of the goals down that way, and the other goals was with its back to Derry Hill, compared to the way they are now, like, you know. And I played both ways in it, so there was a bit of a hill in it that's not in it now. And it was an advantage, and we knew how to play it, like, you know, at that stage.
The opening game was a 2-1 win over Cork, and the first ever Dundalk goal was scored by Billy McCarthy.
The players wore white shirts for that first game at Oriel Park, but the club didn't always sport the lily white kit that we all know and love today. When G.N.R first took to the field, they wore black and amber striped shirts with white shorts. It wasn't until 1927 that we saw the iconic white shirt, but back then they paired this with navy shorts and the old Dundalk Corporation seal as the crest. It was premiered on St Stephen's Day 1927 in the opening match of the 1927-28 League of Ireland Shield. Dundalk FC wouldn't change the kit again until the 1939-40 season, when they wore a sky blue and maroon quartered shirt with white shorts and maroon socks. The white kit was seen as unlucky due to the number of cup final defeats Dundalk suffered in the 1930s. The change of kit was a disaster when Dundalk FC lost to non-league opposition in the first round of the FAI Cup. The following year, the club reverted back to its white kit, this time with black shorts. The white and black kit with the town crest has seen Dundalk FC through the last 80-odd years, give or take a few seasons where an all-white kit was worn, most recent of which was in 2003. The only deviations to this is the occasional red trims which have appeared on the jerseys since the 1990s. The Gold Star didn't appear on the shirt until 2015, after Stephen Kenny's side claimed their 10th League of Ireland title.
To find out more about what goes into a Dundalk FC kit, we spoke to Noel Walsh, who has been kitting the lads out.
Well, Sean McCaffrey brought me in. This is my 11th season, so 2012. He was the Irish international manager, underage at the time, and I used to work with him doing the kit, and when he came to Dundalk in 2012, he brought me down.
Who was the best player to wear the Dundalk FC shirt?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'd have to think about that one. Many great players. Probably someone that will get the fans excited, and on the feet, Darryl Hogan. Well, I love the traditional white and black jersey, and probably my favourite one would have been the white and black with the 3 little black stripes down the side. A lot of influence goes into the kits. Like I'd be on the outside, and I did ask for different things. The one thing I hate to see on the jerseys is buttons, or even little zips. I prefer the simple one with no zips or no buttons. I can tell you a story. Back to Europe, we were wearing the black and gold jersey. Not the black and gold we have now, the one before that, and there was 3 buttons on it. And one regular player, he played every match in Europe and in the league, and he was going out that night. Just as we were walking out the tunnel, he said to me, Noel, have you none of jersey? And I said, no, why, what's wrong? There's a button missing. And he was doing his head in. And the thing was, why I just don't like the buttons is, I hang the jersey, I never tumble dry them, I hang them to dry naturally on wire hangers, and you button, if there's buttons on them, you button them to keep them in shape. But then when the players get them, they just bully the head into them without opening the buttons, and that's how they come off.
Dundalk FC have a great history of donating jerseys
to
charity. And
yes, very good history, and we had, in the last few years, we had 2 jerseys, especially for charity. I think it was Temple Street, the purple jersey, and in this year there were one for, especially white when we played the Bows match 1 off in. So,
MND.
Yes, yeah. So they're always, most seasons, there's always, and the players are brilliant for signing jerseys and buying jerseys and getting them signed for small charities, like individual charities for someone that needs a little help with some operation or something. So that's what I'd see with the players. They're very generous that way.
Any funny stories about the kit?
There would be a few stories about the kit. Like people would be getting jerseys signed, and we went up. We were playing. It would have been a League Cup match, and we were wearing the old black and gold one. And in those League Cup matches, Stephen Kenny was the man at the time. He'd bring in some of the younger fringe players to play, and so I'd be scraping to get jerseys for them. And the team was in the huddle before the game started. And one of the jerseys I sent out was one that was signed and a young lad had on him, and he played the game in it. No one else noticed it. It was the black and gold, you couldn't really see it far away. So that was a funny story.
Is there any superstitions attached to the jerseys?
Loads of superstitions. Keepers we had before was very be asking for different colours. Peter Cherry wore pink, you might remember, and Stephen Kenny didn't want him to wear the pink, he didn't like it, and we got a few wins at it, and so he said he'd wear it the whole time. That first season, 2015, it was our first league match of the season. That when Darrell Horgan signed, we played draw their way. We were beaten, I think 5-0, 5-1, and our keeper that night wore a red jersey, and that red jersey was never played in for the goalkeeper since. We never played in red jerseys, but it was just pure superstitious with the red jersey, because we lost that first match, and there was people saying we wore the red away jersey, outfield players, this year twice, and we didn't win, and people were saying, oh, we need to get rid of that. So at least we put that right in, what was it, Finn Harps, wasn't it?
There have been many great teams who have won the league in the Lily White kit. The first of which was Stephen Wright's team back in the early 1930s. He was club trainer, having been appointed in the 1930-31 season, and had played previously at Bohemians, Bolton Wanderers, North City and Brighton and Hove Albion. In the 32-33 season, Dundalk FC became the first club outside Dublin to win a league title. They topped the 10-team league with 13 wins, 3 draws and 2 losses, giving them 29 points. There was only 2 points for a win in those days and 1 for the draw. Jerry McCourt captained and Sammy Patton was vice-captain. They only had 17 squad players over that season. Ben Lewis was the Welsh goalie, and Gordon McDermott did not miss any of the 42 competitive games. The top goal scorer was John Smith with 14 league goals. Other contributors included Eddie Carroll, Mick Burke, Sammy Patton, Jerry McCourt, Jimmy Mitchell, Jack McMahon, Henry Hurst, G. McDermott, Bernie Duffy, Davy Nelson, and local man Paddy Clark, Johnny Fallon, Jack Slowey, Harry Cummins and Dickie Johnson. It would be the last league title Dundalk would win until a young man from the Quay called John Murphy, who we'll hear from in a few minutes, led Dundalk to their next league title in 1963, ending a 30-year wait for domestic dominance. After that first title winning season in 1933, Dundalk were runners-up 8 times across the league: FAI Cup, Shield, Dublin City Cup and Leinster Senior Cup. Their first cup victory was in 1938 in the City Cup. Dundalk won their first FAI Cup in 1942 against Cork United in Dalymount Park. They continued this success 5 weeks later by winning the first Dublin and Belfast Intercity Cup and becoming the best team on the island of Ireland.
In the 40s, a lot of players were sold to English clubs as their club was struggling financially and gate sales were not enough to keep their club afloat. The club lost the City Cup and the league by a point in the 47-48 season, and that prompted the committee to invest in a number of Scottish players to try and attract bigger crowds. John Murphy recalls the greatest players who played for Dundalk in 1940s.
1940s. I can remember a great Scotch team. There was a whole lot of Scottish players played. Anderson, Skevington, Wilson, names like that, and I always remember Anderson because it was the first goalkeeper I ever saw with a big yellow jersey. And of course the yellow caught your imagination, even though the rest of them wore white ones. But this guy stood out, like, you know. At that stage, Dundalk was your religion, really. Every Sunday. It was on the Sundays then they played. And every Sunday you wouldn't miss. You'd go to Mass, get your dinner, and Oriel Park couldn't come quick enough for you. And that's gone back into the 40s. I think the Scotchmen were here in 1948.
The plan worked, and Dundalk topped the City Cup unbeaten and won their second FAI Cup against Shelbourne in 1949. Unfortunately, the new team did not perform in the Shield and the league, and despite the increased attendance and the cup double, it was not enough to cover the cost. Financial difficulties took their toll on Dundalk FC in the 50s. While the club had some success in cup competitions, they did not seriously challenge for a league title or a shield until the end of the decade. They did, however, win their first Leinster Senior Cup in 51, their third FAI Cup in 53 against Cork Athletic, and a fourth FAI Cup against Rovers in 58. As the club entered the 60s, things were looking up for Dundalk. They won their second Leinster Senior Cup in 1961, a decade after their first, and league glory was just around the corner.
Among the best players ever to play for the club was John Murphy. John told us how he got involved with the club and the great times he had with them as a player.
A man called Jack Ciarán that came out, I think he went on to be the chairman of Dundalk, but Frank Ciarán of the GAA, it'd be his father, asked me in the shoe factory. I worked in Clark's shoe factory, would I go up and play with the B team, which was the reserve team then for Dundalk.
Yeah.
So I said certainly, but that was after I joined the Pats as a junior team. And I was playing summer league when I was 17 or 18, you know, so I was blooded early into the junior football, which was a lot harder than the under-18, say, minor league teams.
You got called up to Dundalk then, and you're playing on the B team. Did it take you long to break into the first team?
About 2 years, and it was a very lucky break for me, because I'd been in Dundalk, I'd say, from 1957. And I was with the B team doing well, and like everyone else, it was nearly an all-local team at that time. You were just hoping that you'd ever get a chance. So I got me chance. Dundalk were after winning the cup, 1958. They had one game to play after they won the cup, and I got playing in that one. Someone couldn't make it off the winning cup team, and I got in, and the rest was history after that. Like. Well, locally, we had Francie Callan, Tucci McCone, Patsy McCone, Davy McCardle, Kevin Bone. There was a great sprinkling of locals then, because like the money wasn't there to pay big players from Dublin, like, you know, and we were more or less delighted to get a chance. But we never let the team down. It's like everything else. When you get plenty of games, you get experience. And that's what we got. We got games, and we had experience, and, like, you know, enough to go on in 1963 and win the league, really.
Dundalk had been without a league title for
1933.
Yeah.
And we won it exactly in 1963, David. And I was very lucky to be made captain that year. And why I was made captain, I don't know. Maybe I had too much to say in the dressing rooms, and I was passionate about. I never believed we could be beaten. If we, like, even today, if we were Dundalk were playing Brazil, I'd still think they were going to win, like, you know, and want them to win. It was an honour for me to captain your hometown, you know, and certainly it was one of these decisions that lives with me still. Because I have my medal over there in the cabinet, and you can look at it so often and have to say, it says on it, League of Ireland winners, John Murphy captain. You know, there's very few people. I'm the only man in Dundalk, only Dundalk man that ever to captain the Premier League winning team. David Crawley captained the First Division team and the Cup victory. David did, and believe it or not, he's a K man too.
Yeah.
So it seemed to be all joining into a fairy tale, like, you know, the way it was going. But they were brilliant days, like, and Joe Ralph was a wonderful player. He was finishing at the time. He was in the veteran stage, and he'd take you aside and he'd tell you things. Nice. You had to go out and size up the situation yourself, you know. And if your brain wasn't working well enough, well, you hadn't a good game. And of course, I worked in the shoe factory, and if I had a bad game, there'd be 1,400 people in the toilet to me on a Monday morning. If they saw me go in the toilet, to tell me I had a bad game. You know, but that was the way it was. But it kept you on your toes, that you didn't want too many bad Monday mornings with them.
In that league season, what drove you on, and what was the vibe in the town like at the time?
Well, it was nothing like it is now, David, like, you know, because there was no teletext, there was nothing at that stage, and you'd be lucky to hear a result on the radio. You know, there was a chap called Tony Sheehan done a programme of a Sunday night, and he'd be on for maybe 25 minutes, and he'd go through all the League of Ireland, and that was your up-to-date. Outside of that, you couldn't put, there was no televisions anywhere at that stage, hardly, that you knew nothing about it. And the way I was told about Dundalk winning the league was this chap, he was a coach with Dundalk, Colin Bellew, and he rapped the door down in St. George Square, and I opened it, and he said, he threw his arms round me, "Congratulations, John, Dundalk have won the league." Because Drumcondra, and I think it was Waterford or someone like that, had drawn midweek. And this was an hour after the game. However he got the score, I don't know. But it meant that we had won the league because they only drew, and we won it by a point. Like me, an ordinary guy from the Quay, captain Dundalk, to a league-winning title. It's Disneyland stuff, you know, to me still. You know, sometimes I sit back here and say, Jesus, John, you were so lucky. Out of all the people in Dundalk, you got in the right year, like, you know. And I always feel and felt after that I was so lucky to get that honour of being the captain.
Who's the best player you played with?
The best player has to be Jimmy Hasty, because more or less everyone knows Jimmy Hasty. But Francie Callan and Turchi McKeown were two brilliant players that weren't far away. Unfortunately, Francie didn't score as many goals as Jimmy. And Turchi was a wonderful full back. He was a left full, I was a right full. And they could play with any League of Ireland team or any team at that time, you know. But Jimmy Hasty got the praise because the goal scorer always gets it. But fair play to him, he deserved it. And, you know, I suppose you'd have to go for Jimmy Hasty. But I loved playing with Francie Callan and Turchi. They were great. They were great local players like myself, and like, you know, they were feeling like myself that this was an honour to be playing with the white shirt on your back.
You have a heap of goals for
17, I think I scored. I was reading there one. Yeah, I think my famous one would be Talca Park again. A non-league team called Albert Rovers from Cork. I hit a screamer from about 35 yards, just made it lovely on the meat, like, you know. And she hopped into the top of the net, like. Yeah. Scored a good few goals with me head too from corner kicks, and I took the penalties. Missed the penalty against Glasgow Celtic when they beat us 4-3 in a pre-season game. Later on in the year, Glasgow Celtic went on and won the European Cup. We knew nothing about FC Zurich. It was our first year, the first ever time Dundalk played in Europe. The night of the match, I was working in the shoe factory till 5 o'clock, got a cup of tea, got up in the minibus, and we were going up the laneway in Dailyman Park 3/4 of an hour before the kick-off. And when I see them these days, they're away 3 and 4 days ahead of the games now. It amazes me, like, you know, and I just compare it to my time. But, you know, that's progress now. But the funny thing about it was when we did play Zurich in Dailyman Park, there was supposed to be 23,000 people at it that night. And we didn't turn up. We were overawed by the whole situation. And we were overawed very early in the game because even in the kickouts, we went down, every one of them had a tracksuit off. FC Zurich had a tracksuit. We had nothing, only pants and jersey and a ball each. And we had the one ball kicking in, and Christy Barton, who was our goalkeeper then. And that you know, when you look back up the field and you see these guys immaculately dressed and a ball each and stuff like that, it didn't help. You know, we were beaten 3-0 because we didn't turn up on the night. But come the second round, we all more or less, we knew we had let the town down. We knew we could play better. And when we come the second leg, we did play better. And we were winning 2-0. Francie Callan and Jimmy Hasty scored 2 goals. Jimmy Hasty hit the crossbar just about 10 minutes ago. And if we'd have got that goal, we were in the playoff. We'd never heard tell it before. You know, and Zurich scored a goal later on. And even though we won 2-1, that was the first time a League of Ireland team ever won away in the European Cup. So that was another bit of history for Dundalk, like, you know. And marvellous night and marvellous memories of that game, because everyone played so well. You know, and there was a hell of a story told, I'm sure people heard it before, that when we were getting off the plane at Zurich, the Zurich officials were there to welcome you and so forth. And Davy McCardle got off. He was after getting a knock the Sunday before and he had a crutch. Timmy Lanes, a fortnight before we played, broke his elbow and he was in the sling. Jerry McCourt, our trainer, had a limp and he limped down the lad. You know, and next out was Jimmy Hasty with one arm. And it was well known that the Zurich people said, this plane is in the wrong place, it should be in Lourdes. You know, this was before the game. And that was the way it was, but like, you know, but like we all rose to the occasion then, David. And it was a wonderful display and a wonderful night for anyone that was there to see it.
My favourite player of all time, Derek Stokes. Yeah.
Of all time?
Yeah.
Martin Murray.
Your favourite players in the past? Terry Everston.
Absolutely fantastic player. Just all natural talent. That was it, you know.
She was a great lad, great player.
After the success of the 63-64 season, Dundalk FC failed to retain the title, finished runners-up in the league and the Shield. A poor 64-65 season led to the decision to appoint Jerry Doyle as manager of Dundalk, and the following season wasn't much better again. Financial instability led to the folding of the membership-based ownership model and a new public limited company took over. In 66-67, Dundalk signed player-manager Alan Fox from Bradford, who led the club to their first League of Ireland Shield, followed it up by winning the league by 7 points and the club's first double. They made this a treble when they won that season Top 4 Cup. The following year, Revelop Oil Park hosted its first European match under new floodlights against Vizaz SC of Hungary. Fox fell out with the board and was released the following match despite his team doing well in Europe. Liam Toohey was appointed as manager in 1969 and came to Dundalk as one of the greatest personalities of Irish soccer. He had 8 caps for Ireland, won 4 league titles, 4 FAI Cups and spent 3 seasons at Newcastle United. He had a tough time trying to assemble a side capable of challenging for a league title while attempting to reduce the wage bill at the club. Work commitments in this area led him to resign his role at Shamrock Rovers and accept a role as Dundalk manager in the 69-70 season. It was the club in turbulence both on and off the pitch. The new 4-2-4 formation was engaged. Tommy McConville also signed as a professional. 2 new clubs joined the league that year. Athlone Town after an absence of 40 years, and also first-timers Finn Harps, much to the disbelief of many involved.
In fact, it was recorded that Des Casey, Paddy McCourt and Sam Prohl helped greatly in Finn Harps' application to the league. Harps player Brendan Bradley was a name on everyone's lips that season as he topped the goal charts with 18 league goals, and by the end of his career had scored 235 league goals alone. The big excitement that season was a trip to Anfield to play Liverpool in the Fairs Cup. It didn't go well for Dundalk as they were defeated 14-0 on aggregate by Bill Shankly's men. Despite a great start to the 1969 and 70 season, a string of losses in the new year put an end to any glory that season. Leading goal scorer on 21 goals across all competitions for that year was Dubliner Paddy Turner, dad of one of our own, Derek Turner, from the Spirit Store. Paddy Turner scored 103 goals for Dundalk in his 7-season spell, equalling Jimmy Hasty's goal-scoring record. The 1970-71 season brought better tidings for the Lily Whites. Turlough O'Connor returned from surgery to find great form and bagged 25 goals for the club, to top the leading goal-scorer table. Dundalk took silverware twice that season by lifting the Leinster Cup and the Dublin City Cup. Liam Toohey had also managed to substantially reduce the wage bill for that year from £16,000 to £9,500, and a youth coaching and development policy had been invoked. Toohey was appointed the manager of the Irish international team and for a period of 12 months managed both teams, although the Irish team only had one fixture during that period, which fell after the domestic season had ended. In the 71-72 season, the only bit of silverware for the trophy cabinet was a shield win over Drogheda 5-0 in Dalymount. 10 players, Turlough O'Connor and Tommy McConville, were selected for the Irish squad in 1972 to participate in the Brazilian Independence Cup. O'Connor made 4 appearances in games against Iran, Ecuador, Chile and Portugal, scoring against Ecuador but also getting red carded against Chile. Back in Oriel, financial crisis was threatening the club. Average gates of £300 were falling far short of the £700 needed to run the club on a weekly basis. The Supporters Social Club were contributing by raising $5,000 yearly to pay club creditors. The hard-working board struggled to raise investors. The only solution was to sell our premium players, Turlough O'Connor, Tommy McConville and Sean Sheehy, which saved the club from liquidation.
It was Fran Brennan who took over from Liam Toohey and stayed for just one season. This was the season that saw the laying of the stock car racing track around Oriel Park. The following season, the role was taken on by John Smith as player manager. Smith had previously played for West Ham and Walsall. When he arrived, he brought some of his ex-Walsall colleagues, including winger Jimmy Dainty. It wasn't since the 30s that there was so many ex-English League players taken to the pitch in Oriel. Fortunes were mixed, but they did pick up the Leinster Cup. The most notable part of the 73-74 season was when Oriel Park played host to the FAI Cup final featuring Athlone and Finn Harps. 2 early Harps goals had Athlone on the back foot. Athlone goalie Mick O'Brien swung out of the crossbar, causing it to break. After a quick repair, the game continued, but O'Brien, realising that fate was on their side, decided to have another go at the goals in the hope of spawning a replay from the match being abandoned. He scaled that net from behind and proceeded to bounce on the crossbar, causing it to be reduced to a pile of tingling. The PA announcer asked, "Is there a carpenter in the crowd?" The match referee took a different view and gave him his marching orders. This was all caught up on camera by RTE. Smith left the club 2 games into his second season for a job outside of football. This paved the way for one of Dundalk's most successful spells under the management of Jim McLaughlin. To find out more about Dundalk FC's success in the era, we spoke to sports journalist and Dundalk FM presenter Ciarán Callan.
Jim McLaughlin was a player manager. Initially, he was a player at the club, and then he became a player manager. And I think he's had a wealth of history. He's won league and cups and doubles with Shamrock Rovers. He's won titles with Dundalk, and then obviously he's most remembered for the record that still stands. Vinnie Perth was a penalty kick away from equalling it. That is winning the treble, the domestic treble with Derry City. But I think Jim McLaughlin's most famous kind of period was when he was manager during that 1979-1980 season, when Dundalk went on that absolutely incredible run in the European Cup. They played Linfield, then they played a team from Malta before drawing Glasgow Celtic. It was just, an absolutely summer, if not a season of a lifetime. Like, those players were part-time. They were working in factories, and they were coming up against these very established sides. And, Celtic were given a run for their money. And the Linfield game, it's gone down in folklore for so many reasons. The passing of Lord Mountbatten the week before, then obviously the attack in Warren Point kind of was basically the diesel to the match in this contest. And then obviously it all boiled over on the time that it came. But obviously for the away leg to be played in a very random city in Holland, played in Haarlem, and even the locals didn't even realise what was going on. They went just to watch the match, and Dundalk went through. And I think there was kind of a very nice kind of ending to it, that the Dundalk and Linfield players were drinking in the bar together. I know Dermot Keeley once said in a documentary that he said the beer was rubbish. It was a massive head on it. He wanted more lager. But, and then they obviously beat the team from Malta, and then they went on to play Glasgow Celtic. And, Celtic were a powerhouse back then. And for them to go, toe-to-toe with them was absolutely incredible. And I think that if you relate it to kind of, this modern era, in 2017, we got narrowly knocked out by Rosenborg in the Champions League qualifiers. And Ciarán Kilduff had a glorious opportunity, which the goalkeeper just tipped over the bar. If that goal had gone in, it would have been 2-2. We would have went through on the away goals, but we would have played Celtic again. And it would have been just a nice thing to kind of link the two again. But hopefully we have an opportunity to do that. But Jim McLaughlin would go down as probably one of the greatest managers that this league has ever seen. Never mind just for Dundalk. And I think, when you hear the likes of Stephen Kenny and Vinnie Perth and the likes, really putting him on a pedestal, it shows you kind of how much revered he is in this league and in this country. And the fact that he's gotten the freedom of the city, he still attends Dundalk games when he can. He's an icon. And we remember what has come before us. As long as we remember that Jim McLaughlin has had such an important part of our history, he will be fondly remembered.
I was assistant manager to Jim McLaughlin, believe it or not. Yeah. John Smith first, and then Jim McLaughlin got the job. And sure, we went on and won the league and cup there those years. And I have a very happy memory of winning the league. We were in the Imperial after celebrating, and the boys were after getting their medals. And the late Brian McConville came over and shook my hand, and in the palm of his hand was the medal. And he says, "Well done, John, the half of that is yours." Because Brian played full back, and he wasn't really a full back, but I used to coach him from the dugout. Closer, Brian, closer. No, you're too far in, go back a bit, he'll clone you now, and stuff like that, and it was an unbelievable, it was an honour to me that he thought of that. And, you can imagine a fella shaking hands with you and a league medal in the palm of his hand. He said, "The half of that's yours because the way you helped me along the season." It was a brilliant thing to do, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I had the same experience with Brian. We were after winning something, after coming back from some Richmond Park, St Patrick's Athletic. We had a meal in the Imperial. I chose the Brian for training. And the next thing was, I got a phone call to the Shear Factory on Monday morning that Brian McConville was after being found dead in the bed. And, that was a terrible shock. He was a good friend of mine. And, even today I'd miss him. But then Tommy came along and took the sting out of it and stuff like that. That helped to, and I was lucky enough. I was ending my career when Tommy McConville came, and I could help him along a bit. Tell him a few things. Who am I to tell Tommy McConville that, But Tommy went on and done himself proud, from a footballer. So there are things you look back at and say, you had a wee bit of help in doing that,
Jim McLaughlin left the club in May of 1983, saying he needed a change. During his 9-year spell at the club, he won 3 leagues, 3 FAI Cups, and his team went on an 8-match unbeaten run in Europe in Oriel Park over 5 seasons. Our story doesn't end here, but this episode does. Thanks to everyone who joined us over the last 45 minutes for part 1 of this 2-part documentary on the history of Dundalk FC. In the next episode, we'll be continuing the story from 1984 to the present day. There'll be away days, European nights, relegation and dominance. Thanks to Dundalk FM for their assistance in making this documentary, David Bellew on sound, and Ciarán for collecting box pops. We'd also like to thank our interviewees, Robbie Rafferty, Noel Walsh, John Murphy, Ciarán Callan, and all the amazing Dundalk FC fans who took part in this documentary.
Also, a massive thanks to all the Dundalk FC volunteers, staff, players and management, past and present.
This is Orla Crilly.
And I've been Jason Kelly.
See you next time.
This programme was funded by the Broadcasting Authority of Ireland with a television licence fee.